Two sisters navigate a local supermarket, gathering supplies for their clandestine escape to New York. The younger girl, Maria, eyes a box of chocolates and pleads for them, but her older sister, Isabel, firm yet gentle, refuses. She reminds Maria that they must conserve every cent for the journey and that luxuries must wait until they are safe. She whispers her fear that the man they are fleeing will track them down and return them to the darkness of the basement. Isabel stops, taking her sister's hands. She reveals a tattoo of a bird in flight on her wrist, a silent vow of freedom. "We are never going back," she promises. "We're flying now." Driven by a child's impulse, Maria waits for Isabel to turn away and slides the chocolates into her backpack. The bell above the door chimes, and a heavy silence follows. A man enters, his presence instantly suffocating the room. Panic surges through Maria as she scrambles to find Isabel. He claims he isn't angry, feigning sympathy for the rough time they've had since their mother's funeral. Finds their abandoned shopping basket, a predator catching a scent. Seeing a narrow window, the sisters bolt for the exit. But as they cross the threshold, the security alarms erupt into a piercing buzz, triggered by the stolen chocolate in Maria's bag. The sisters scramble outside. Isabel pulls a handgun from her jacket. The man approaches, unblinking and devoid of fear. He sneers, asking if she truly has the nerve to murder her own father. Isabel doesn't blink. She pulls the trigger. The man collapses, but even as he bleeds out, his hand clamps like a vice around Maria's ankle. Isabel breaks into a sprint, vanishing into the shadows and leaving Maria behind in the grip of their past. 10 years later in New York City, an older sister stands before a towering high-rise, her thumb pressing the buzzer. As she waits, her eyes linger on the door's intricate engravings, which depict dark, hellish imagery and figures of the underworld. A woman named Lily answers. The newcomer introduces herself as Isabella. After a brief inspection of her ID, Lily gestures for her to enter. Stepping across the threshold, Isabel notices the door is reinforced with an unusual array of heavy-duty locks. Catching her confused look, Lily explains that the building's age necessitates such intense security measures for everyone's peace of mind. Inside, Isabella is introduced to Sharon, the polished owner of a major cosmetics firm. Noticing Isabel is drenched, Sharon offers her a dry coat and asks about the visible injury to her eye. Isabel quickly lies, claiming she took a spill in the shower, though Sharon's expression suggests she doesn't quite buy the story. As they move through the halls, Isabella watches the other staff working with quiet intensity. Lily stops to check on a maid eating her supper, only for a child nearby to call the worker a piggy. Lily gently corrects the child before turning back to Isabella, who asks about the house's atmosphere. Lily explains that they follow a small tradition. Every night, one lucky maid receives a special reward. She speaks with pride about how the estate provides a sanctuary for women in crisis, offering them a chance to earn a living and reclaim their futures. Their walk is interrupted when a man named Ray, the old woman's husband, steps out from a side room. Lily's tone drops to a sharp whisper as she warns him to stay clear of the new staff, promptly ushering him away. Finally reaching the designated quarters, Lily advises Isabella to get some sleep before her duties commence at dawn. Left alone, Isabella unpacks and prepares for a hot shower. As the bathroom fills with mist, a chilling message begins to form in the condensation on the mirror. "They will kill you." It vanishes as quickly as it appeared, unnoticed by Isabella. Returning to the main room, she feels a prickle of unease and looks toward the air vent. Peering through the slats, she finds a pair of human eyes staring directly back at her, sending her stumbling backward in pure terror. A chilling laughter echoed outside her door. But when Isabel investigated, the hallway was deserted. Suddenly, the overhead lights began to extinguish in a rhythmic sequence, swallowing the corridor in shadows. When they flickered back to life, a dark, motionless silhouette stood at the far end, its gaze fixed intently on her. Terrified, she retreated into her room, slamming the door shut and wedging a chair firmly under the handle. She collapsed onto the bed, her eyes darting toward the air vent as she nervously flicked her lighter. Deep into the night, the silence was shattered by the sound of someone picking the lock. The door rattled, but the makeshift barricade held firm. Then, the sensation of being watched returned. An eye peered through the slats of the air duct. Moments later, a section of the wall behind the refrigerator swung open, revealing a hidden crawl space. A figure emerged and crept to the foot of her bed. Isabel was jolted awake by the wet, repulsive sensation of someone licking her feet. Looming over her was a man with the grotesque, distorted features of a pig, his saliva dripping onto her skin. She bolted upright, but the room appeared empty. Confused and trembling, she wiped the moisture from her face and leaned over to check beneath the bed frame. Finding nothing, she began to stand, only for the pig-faced intruder to lunge from the shadows. A desperate struggle erupted. The assailant pressed a chloroform-soaked rag to her face, but in a final surge of adrenaline, Isabel fought him off and struck him with enough force to knock him unconscious.
The victory was short-lived. From the air duct came the frantic scratching of more intruders attempting to break in. Lightheaded and fading from the chemical fumes, Isabel crawled toward the glow of her bedside lamp. 2 more pig-faced figures stepped into the room. The tension in the room fractures as the masks come off, revealing the familiar faces of Sharon and Kevin, while the man slumped on the floor is identified as Bob. In the chaos, Isabel's eyes snap open just as Sharon begins dragging her across the floor by her ankles. In a desperate surge of adrenaline, Isabel bites down on a nearby live wire. Isabel scrambles away, diving into the sanctuary of a nearby closet. Kevin and his remaining crew converge on her hiding spot as Sharon and Bob shake off their injuries, closing in for the kill. When Kevin finally rips the closet door open, he doesn't find a trembling victim. Isabel is crouched, coiled like a spring. With a cold, rhythmic precision, she swings a blade, beheading Kevin before his grin can even fade. She surges out, arming herself with a hidden cache of weapons. A deafening blast rings out as she guns down one of the masked intruders, but Sharon manages to kick the shotgun from her hands.
Isabel prepares to take on the remaining 3. When one lunges for the discarded firearm, she ruthlessly cuts him down in midair. The fight moves to the bedroom. Isabel slides beneath the bed, using the heavy mattress as a shield and a trap to pin her attacker's legs. Sharon recovers the shotgun and fires wildly, but Isabel rolls clear as the pellets shred the headboard. The hammer clicks on an empty chamber. The gun is spent. The air grows thick with the sound of desperate hand-to-hand combat. In a frantic move, Bob hurls a knife at Isabel, but his aim is off. The blade sinks into Sharon instead. Barely clinging to life, Bob drags his mangled body into the hallway. Isabel doesn't give him the chance to breathe. She quickly pulls on her sweatpants and stalks after him. She catches him in the corridor, pinning him to the floor under the watchful eye of the elderly woman. The woman watches the bloody scene with a slow, appreciative applause, her suspicions confirmed. No mere maid possesses such lethal instincts. Without a word or a shred of hesitation, Isabel delivers the final blow, silencing Bob forever. The old woman turns to her, her gaze sharp and unwavering. "Who are you?" she demands. In that moment, the facade of Isabel slips away to reveal Asia Reeves. A decade ago, Asia committed what she considers her soul's heaviest burden. She abandoned her younger sister. While her father managed to survive the chaos of that night, Asia was captured and sentenced to nearly 10 years behind bars. It was within those cold stone walls that she forged herself into a lethal weapon. Upon her release, a contact informed her that her sister was last seen in the very building where she had just dispatched a squad of masked intruders. To infiltrate the premises, she intercepted and assumed the identity of the real Isabel, who had been hired as the new maid. Standing in the corridor, Asia drops all pretense. "Give me my sister," she commands. Lily, however, remains eerily composed. "Before we discuss family," Lily replies softly, "you really should meet mine. They're unconventional." The masked intruder she had just slaughtered emerged from the room as if the massacre were merely a rehearsal. The man she had decapitated simply retrieves his head and presses it back onto his neck. Others begin snapping severed limbs back into place with sickening crunches. In the confusion, a maid lunges at Asia with murderous intent. Panicking at the sight of the undead attackers, Asia drives a blade into the woman and retreats into her room, slamming the door shut. Inside, the young boy begins to scream, crying out for his mother.
"Shut up!" Asia shrieks, her nerves frayed, as she frantically drags furniture to barricade the entrance. In the blur of the moment, the boy suddenly lunges forward, sinking a knife into her side. Asia floors the child with a single heavy blow. Trembling, she uses a shard of broken glass to pry the blade from her own flesh. The reality of the nightmare finally setting in. Outside in the hall, Lily calmly takes a machete from the wounded maid. She gestures to the red smears on the floor and says simply, "Clean up this mess." Upon waking, Asia shoves the refrigerator aside, only to find the wall behind it solid. Desperate, she batters the window and claws at the air duct, but neither yields an escape.
As heavy pounding echoes against the door, she frantically peels back the carpet, revealing a concealed trapdoor. Without a second thought, she drops into the dark, narrow crawl space. As Asia navigates the cramped tunnel, she isn't alone. Bob, anticipating her flight, is already prowling the same passage. Hearing his approach, Asia scales the side of the shaft, pressing herself into the shadows just as he passes beneath her.
A struggle ensues as a machete slices through the dark. The blade catches Asia's hand, but she grinds through the pain, cutting herself free to bolt deeper into the labyrinth. Behind her, Sharon fires a shot that whistles past, narrowly missing its mark. The old woman's voice rings through the tunnels, shrieking that Asia must be taken alive. The pursuit intensifies. Sharon gains ground, lunging at her, but Asia drives a jagged nail into her pursuer, reclaiming her shotgun as Sharon falls. Asia resumes her crawl, only for a resurrected Sharon to seize her ankle once more. This time, Asia fires the shotgun point blank, obliterating Sharon's head. Yet the horror continues. The headless torso stands and continues to stumble forward blindly. The macabre figure takes a wrong turn into the gloom, allowing Asia a momentary gasp of relief. Suddenly, the old woman's husband appears, grabbing Asia and pulling her away just as Kevin closes in. Once they emerge into the clear, Asia reunites with Rye. He asks if she noticed his warning scrawled on the mirror, but she had been too frantic to see it. Rye then explains the grim reality of their surroundings. The structure is a century-old temple dedicated to the devil. The masked cultists made a hellish pact, securing immortality in exchange for a steady stream of human sacrifices. He reveals the ultimate prize, a ledger of names. Anyone whose name is inscribed upon those pages is granted eternal life, a gift bought with the blood of those trapped within the walls. That is the secret to their eternal life. No one can truly die here. Every so often, they scout new victims purely for sacrifice, exactly as they had intended for Asia. Meanwhile, Sharon's eyeball dislodges itself from her shattered skull, skittering across the floor to shadow Asia and her rescuer. As they ascend toward the first level, the eye follows silently in their wake. Pausing to peer through an air duct, Asia witnesses several figures engaged in unsettling, hedonistic acts. Her guide calmly explains that when death is no longer an option, boredom becomes the primary enemy. This is the floor dedicated to carnal pursuits. Eventually, they slip into a room where Asia finds her long-lost sister, Maria. Overwhelmed, Asia tries to explain that she's there to save her, but Maria's response is chilling. She has already embraced this place. A flashback reveals the night Maria was abandoned. We see her living in servitude, working like a slave. Her master confronts her, accusing her of ingratitude. He suggests that if she were truly thankful, she would show it through more than just words. Desperate to escape, Maria finds a job listing for the very building she is now in. Upon arrival, she is met by the pig-masked cultists. Lily tells her she's arrived at the perfect time. They recently caught a maid stealing, and that woman will be sacrificed in her place. Lily offers Maria the vacant position. Back in the present, Asia struggles to process her sister's betrayal. As the severed eye watches their reunion, Maria refuses to leave, claiming this is the only place she feels secure. Her gratitude turns to bitterness. She shouts that she no longer needs Asia. The argument boils over until Asia loses her temper, knocking Maria unconscious with a single punch. Asia turns to Ray, demanding an exit. He points her toward a fire escape ladder. Just then, a spider crawls over Sharon's wandering eye, causing it to fall from the ceiling. Asia snatches it out of the air and crushes it in her fist. Elsewhere, Kevin discovers Sharon's decapitated remains. When he asks about Asia, Sharon's headless torso uses frantic, grotesque gestures to communicate. Kevin deciphers the message. They are in the intercourse room. He dispatches 2 cult members to intercept them, but Asia guns them down instantly. Heaving her sister over her shoulder, Asia bolts through the corridor with Ray's help. He flings open the fire escape and tries to hold the line, but Kevin brutally punches his way through. Asia narrowly avoids Kevin's grasp as she leaps towards safety. Behind her, Kevin snarls a warning to Ray. There will be a heavy price for his betrayal. Asia escapes through an emergency lift and ducks into a small kitchen. Hearing footsteps, she and the unconscious Maria scramble under a table. The door creaks open. It's Bob. He scans the room, his eyes landing directly on the shotgun Asia left behind. Maria stirs awake, but Asia quickly silences her. Thinking the danger is past, they are blindsided when Bob lunges from the shadows.
Seizing Maria and dragging her away, he pins her to the ground, raining down blows, but Maria manages to grab an axe and strikes him down, saving her sister's life. In the aftermath, the adrenaline fades and Asia slips into unconsciousness. Elsewhere in the manor, Lily stands before a wall of aged photographs documenting decades of marriage. She confronts her husband, demanding to know why he turned against them. He confesses that while he once stood by her when their sacrifices were restricted to the guilty, he can no longer stomach the slaughter of the innocent. Lily, cold and resolute, counters that she never trusted the world to begin with. She reminds them of their days of weakness and how they have fought to secure their current power. Their tension is interrupted by Kevin, who arrives to fetch Lily. Nearby, Sharon, a gruesome sight with a face only partially regenerated, is tasked with guarding him. Lily soon broadcasts a grim announcement. Asia has escaped and is loose in the building. A manhunt begins as the residents and staff arm themselves. Back in the kitchen, Asia comes to just as Maria finishes binding Bob. Maria insists that Asia make a break for the elevator while she creates a diversion. However, as Maria disappears into the halls, a blood-curdling scream rings out. Asia ignores her own safety and rushes toward the sound, entering a room swallowed by total darkness. She is immediately ambushed. Shadowy figures swarm her, disarming her of her shotgun and attacking from every angle.
Asia narrowly escapes the room, but realizes she needs light to fight back. She grabs a bottle of liquor, douses her axe, and sets it ablaze. Through the orange flicker of the flames, she sees the masked figures dragging her sister away. Armed with her fire-wreathed weapon, Asia charges back into the fray. The room transforms into a chaotic battlefield. With the light of the axe, Asia carves through the attackers. When one gunman corners her, she flips a table to absorb the impact, then leaps forward to bisect the assailant. She rips a mask off one of the fallen. The man beneath it begs for mercy, claiming they are merely doing what is necessary to survive. His plea is cut short by a bullet from Maria's gun. The sisters collapse into an embrace, Maria sobbing that Asia should have left her behind, but Asia refuses to hear it. With the sound of reinforcements approaching, they flee toward the elevator shaft. Lily and Kevin later arrive at the scene of the skirmish, surveying a room littered with the wounded and the dead. Deep within the shaft, the sisters find a moment of sanctuary. As Maria bandages Asia's mangled hand, she reveals the heavy news that their father died of cancer 2 years prior. In the quiet dark, the bitterness of the past melts away as both sisters offer each other their long overdue apologies. Lily and the others resume their pursuit, eventually spotting a grim trail of blood smeared across the elevator doors, a clear sign of Asia's location.
As the sisters ascend, Bob abruptly reappears, blocking their path. Asia fires a shot, but misses her mark. In the frantic rush to reload, she fumbles her ammunition. However, Maria catches the falling shells just in time. Asia manages to reload and pull the trigger again, but this time the shotgun jams. Desperate, she hurls the heavy weapon at Bob, but it barely flinches him. They continue their vertical escape until a man lunges at them from a doorway. After a brief struggle, they knock the assailant down. He falls directly into Bob's path, getting crushed and momentarily slowing the pursuer. The sisters finally scramble through an open door, only to find Lily and the rest of the cult waiting for them. Trapped, Asia threatens to leap to her death, intending to deny them their required sacrifice. She demands Maria's freedom in exchange for her cooperation. But Lily meets her gaze with a chillingly calm revelation. Maria isn't a prisoner. She had long ago struck a deal with the devil, agreeing to provide a soul to save her own. A flashback reveals the moment Maria chose her survival over her soul. Faced with the choice of becoming the sacrifice or offering another, she originally targeted Isabel.
However, fate intervened, delivering Asia to the doorstep instead. If Maria fails to deliver a victim now, her own life is forfeit. Asia is shattered by the betrayal. When Kevin lunges to seize her, she fights back, loses her footing, and plummets into the dark elevator shaft. As she falls, a single tear marks her heartbreak. But the end doesn't come. Bob reaches out, catching her midair and hauling her back up to the ledge. Lily immediately stabs Asia in the stomach, collecting the blood needed for the ceremony. They drag Asia toward the ritual chamber while Ray is taken away to face judgment. Inside the room, the air is thick with malice, filled with rows of inverted crosses. At the center stands a gruesome centerpiece, a pig's head mounted on a stake. Lily holds Asia's blood beneath the pig's snout. From the shifting shadows, a demonic presence emerges and inhabits the head, causing the dead animal to twitch and speak. Kevin seizes the moment to denounce Maria and Ray, labeling them traitors. Lily desperately tries to shield her husband, claiming his actions were merely a lapse in emotion. But the devil remains unmoved. With a silent gesture, the entity strikes Ray's name from a list of the protected, stripping him of his immortality. The devil then presents Lily with a final, horrific ultimatum: execute her husband or forfeit her own life. Trembling, but driven by her devotion to the cult, Lily slits Ray's throat.
As his life fades, Kevin and Bob move in to dispose of the body, leaving the ritual complete. Focus shifts to Maria. On her knees, she pleads for mercy, but the devil demands a final proof of devotion. She must end Asia's life. Asia's eyes well with tears as she begs for her sister's soul.
But Maria's mind is set. She doesn't strike. Instead, she picks up the blade and carves her own name onto the cursed list. As they drag Asia forward for the ritual, she whispers a final heartbreaking wish for more time. In a blurred motion, Maria turns the blade on herself. As she collapses, the cultists drop Asia in shock. Asia crawls to her sister's side, sobbing apologies, but Maria's final breath is a command: take them all down. One of the masked figures checks the bodies and declares them dead, but Asia explodes into motion. She kicks him back and seizes the knife. The pighead entity intones the ancient law: for one life, one death. Maria's sacrifice was a trade. She wrote Asia's name on the hide. Asia carves her own name out of the skin, tucking it away as her wounds begin to knit together. She is now the immortal one. The womb descends into chaos. Asia flings the dagger at Bob, and as the others swarm her, she becomes a whirlwind of vengeance. She lashes out with heavy chains, binding a cultist in iron. Kevin is pinned to the stone wall, gasping his last. Sharon is cut down once more, her immortality stripped away. Lucy lunges with Bob's discarded knife, but Asia's counterstrike is lethal. Bob manages to pin Asia against the wall, but she overpowers her with unnatural strength, driving his head into a jagged pipe. Desperate, Lily calls upon her dark master. The entity fuses with her, and a demonic silhouette lunges at Asia. A brutal struggle ensues. The devil pins Asia to the floor, morphing its voice to mimic Maria's, taunting her, blaming her for the sacrifice. But Asia doesn't break. Fueled by a cold, white-hot rage, she leaps upward and tears the pig head clean off Lily's shoulders. Using the mask as a shield, she shoves Lily toward her own gruesome demise. Asia demands her sister back. The entity repeats the cruel rule: one life, one death. In defiance of the entire system, Asia casts the pig head into the flames. As the hide curls and blackens, the names of the immortal elite begin to burn away. The resulting blast sends her spiraling into the elevator as the temple begins to self-destruct. The elevator doors creak open at the ground floor. A crowd of onlookers watches in stunned silence as Asia emerges, blood-streaked and weary, carrying Maria's limp body in her arms. Not a single person dares to stand in her path. Outside, she meets her contact. Surveying the carnage and her hollow expression, he asks what could have caused such a nightmare. Asia's reply is short and bitter:
rich people. She gently places Maria in the back seat. The man begins to offer his condolences for her loss, but Asia reveals a scrap of the pig's hide.
Maria hadn't just sacrificed herself. She had legally changed her name to Asia's before the ritual, tricking the magic. Maria's eyes flutter open, immortal and alive. The sisters embrace, leaving the man to stammer in confusion. He looks at the burning mansion, then at the two sisters, and decides some secrets are better left buried. "Let's go," Maria whispers. "I'm starving." As the house vanishes in a final pillar of fire, the sisters drive away in search of breakfast.